Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ash here coming at you today in Clash Royale. I hope this video finds you all doing well, and darn it, I came through with my promise to you guys. I have the man, the myth, the legend, the beatdown god, TMD YaoYao on the channel, sharing his favorite Dark Prince deck. So there's a lot to talk about in today's video. Before we get to the deck review, let me just ask you guys. We're getting very close to the end. This might be the end if I upload tomorrow of the championship, the Crown Championship Challenge. Have any of you guys gotten the 20 wins to move on to Phase 2 in CCGS? If you did, let us know. Make sure you include the deck that you used and maybe some tips that you have for the deck if people are on their last few tries and they want to make that last surge for the 20 wins or at least the 14 wins to maybe unlock that legendary chest. So let us know how you guys do. Certainly TMD YaoYao went on to Phase 2, and today I'm so excited to share this Dark Prince Golem deck, including the recently buffed Dark Prince and bats in this deck as well. Now, it's a deck that TMD YaoYao typically already used in the past, not with the bats and the Dark Prince, but of course with the Golem and the Lumberjack. When you think Lumberjack, or at least when I do, I think TMD YaoYao. By the way, because you guys all ask every single video that I do with Aaron or YaoYao, TMD stands for Team Massive Dragons. That's the name of their team, within the organization HK Esports. So shout out to Hong Kong Esports as well. So anyway, the deck that we're using here, let's start out. You just saw the last two cards played were Lumberjack and Electro Wiz. So why don't we start this video talking about legendary substitutions before we get into the deck guide portion of the vid. So legendaries, two of them. Lumberjack, you know, in some decks, legendaries are very difficult to sub in because, let's face it, it's very hard to replace a graveyard in a graveyard deck. It's very difficult to replace a miner in a miner chip control deck. This deck is, luckily, it's not the same situation. You can get by with Mini P.E.K.K.A, and these are subs that you could make even if you do have Lumberjack in eWiz, and you want to try a different variation because this variation, for whatever reason, probably to blame me, because I didn't do a good job explaining it, isn't working for you. So, you know, these substitutions are so viable that anybody can do it, even if you have the legendary cards. So for Mini P.E.K.K.A, the recently buffed Mini P.E.K.K.A is going to be for Lumberjack. That's an easy sub. You get more defensive power, and the deck cost stays the same. For eWiz, you can actually sub in, you have two options here. You actually have a few options. It's kind of like a flex spot in the deck. eWiz obviously does really well. It's a strong defensive air targeting card against like Lava Loon, but you already have you know, a few air options in this deck, and you have lightning as well. What I would suggest, if you're okay making what is already an expensive deck a little bit more expensive, I would consider adding in the Executioner in that spot. The Executioner with the Baby Dragon and with the Dark Prince are a really lethal combination, synergizing with that Tornado. Man, you'd have a defensive answer for anything that your opponent could throw at you. So those would be my suggestion. Oh, Executioner. But what if you want to go cheaper? What if you're like, Ash, dude, man, Executioner, that's a 5-cost card. This deck is getting really pricey with no Elixir Pump. Well, we get an option for you guys too. You can add in Goblin Gang. You can add, if you want to keep it the same, you can add Musketeer. Like I said, it's kind of a flex spot. If you want to go even cheaper, you could add in the 3-cost Princess. You could add in the 3-cost Archers. You could add in 3-cost even Minions. Basically, you just want something that's going to be targeting air no matter what you're using in that eWiz spot. Okay, so that's the substitutions. Enough on that. Let's talk a little bit about the obvious concern with this deck. The concern with this deck, and YaoYao, I actually had a chat with him. For those of you who don't know, you should check out TMD Aaron, TMD YaoYao, and TMD Siake, I think is how you say his name. I'll include all 3 links of those guys in the description for you guys, because they can all speak English. So if you watch them live stream, they'll be speaking Chinese or whatever their language is. Excuse me for not knowing. Mandarin? I think so. I don't know. But anyway, they'll be speaking their native tongue, and then what you can do is engage with them in English, and they'll actually answer you a lot of times in English as well. So what I want to do now is talk a little bit about this deck in terms of the obvious weakness. It is an expensive deck and no elixir pump in it. So how are you going to manage to play this deck successfully? Because we want you to be successful here on CWA Pro Tips, right? How can you play this deck and avoid the perils of having a really expensive deck and making mistakes and falling way behind and not being able to catch up to your opponent? Well, TMD YaoYao said what he wants to do here is, although he's an aggressive player by nature, and a lot of pros are, he tries to pick his spots in single elixir time. First of all, he's not going to be using offensive lightning too often. In rare situations where he already had the positive elixir advantage, then he's going in with a push with a golem, he can use the lightning in single elixir time. But just remember, this deck is very susceptible to being punished. You want to wait till double elixir time mostly to get your big pushes off and get the 3 crown or the winning crown victory, taking 2-1 or 1-0 with this deck. So, you know, guys, just keep in mind, you don't want to go super aggressive early on with this deck. It's more you have a lot of defensive capabilities. That's one good thing about this deck. And I should note, YaoYao actually was playing this version of the deck without Dark Prince previous to the buff, and without bats, just using goblins and elixir pump in their spots. So that's another variation of this same deck with the elixir pump and the goblins instead of the bats and the Dark Prince. If you want to go, excuse me, if you want to go back to that version, give it a shot. Maybe that will work better for you if you're just not able to handle the elixir management that is really paramount to having success with this deck variation. So let's go ahead and do some play-by-play here on these last couple matches. Try to get into the head of the beatdown god himself, the great TMD YaoYao. So here he's going to start out with the Dark Prince in the back. It's actually not an awful opening play. Of course, you could lose or you could fall prey to bats like he just did there. He's able to use the baby dragon. At this point in the battle, he just wants to find out what his opponent's deck is and how he's going to deal with it. So he actually, unfortunately, placed that lumberjack way in the back right at the same time that his opponent placed that elixir pump. He opts to use the lightning on the pump. However, look at this. That mini P.E.K.K.A. is actually going to get to his tower. Now, of course, the mini P.E.K.K.A. isn't on rage. The opponent is starting a little BMing here, and he's able to get a lot of hits on that tower. So sort of a misplay there by YaoYao. The opponent really giving it to him here. Ooh, I would be muting right now, I think. I don't know about you guys, but I can stand for a little bit of BMing. Even I'm cool with it at this point. Like, I've dealt with it. If you're gonna BM me, it's cool. It's all right. You're not gonna hurt my feelings. But if you're relentless with it, that's when I start using the mute button. I'm not one of those auto mute guys. Anyway, digress, back to the play-by-play. Starts again with the Dark Prince in the back. Now remember, guys, he has the golem in his hand here, so we're actually seeing a perfect example of what I was talking about before. I think an inexperienced player, such as yours truly, would probably play a golem by now, because we've had the golem really in our hand for quite a while now here. However, YaoYao is just being patient. He knows he'll have the big advantage when we get to double elixir time. So here we go. Finally, double elixir time is upon us in about 3, 2, 1. Now it's time to drop that big golem in the back, and we'll see what we can pull off here. The opponent opts to pump right now. Pumping when you have the lead isn't necessarily a bad idea, so I don't think that was necessarily a mistake by the opponent here. However, he doesn't know the power of the YaoYao deck. You're going to see it right now. It's okay if that lumberjack goes ahead of the golem. In fact, it's a good thing, because that lumberjack's going to die while distracting that mini P.E.K.K.A., and now all the troops in that radius are going to benefit from the rage. So now it's time for YaoYao to absolutely try to punish his opponent, trying to not let them regain their footing and take advantage of that elixir that they'll have the advantage on from the pump. So here we go. We finally got into the tower. The golemites on the tower, the baby dragons, 2 baby dragons on the arena, lumberjack chopping through that ice whiz. Only 9 seconds left. I guess the BMing did not work for the opponent here. Here comes the balloon, and it's not going to be enough time. YaoYao uses that tornado to pull him back to the center. Get over here. And that is going to be GG for YaoYao there. So I should say that YaoYao, I actually recorded about an hour and a half or so of gameplay from YaoYao in this session because he tried out a few different decks. And with this deck, he only actually had one loss in about 12 or so matches. So I think that for him, he can really make it work. Now, that's not saying a lot. He can make a lot of decks work. But I think that anecdotally, in the one loss he had, I would have shown to you guys. But honestly, it was just him. He made a mistake in the match, and it was just one mistake, and it wasn't a... it was, I believe what he did was he used the lightning and missed the musketeers or something like that. I think it was against 3 musketeers, and he got 3 crowned. So, I mean, missing 3 musketeers when they're on your king tower, of course, that's going to, cause you to lose. So I have no problems with showing losses on this channel. Obviously, I do all the time. But at the same time, if it's just one kind of silly mistake, you misclick or whatever, it happens to all of us, even the pros, whether they admit it or not, sometimes it's just not worth showing. So anyway, he did go, like I said, 11 or 12 in 1 with this deck in the time that I was recording. I tried to pick out various replays to share with you guys on different types of new meta decks so you guys can have an accurate picture of what you're going against and how to deal with it. So here we go, lightning used there. Now we're going to be going against a siege deck. Of course, YaoYao actually used his lightning there early, so now he doesn't have the lightning for the elixir, for the expo, and now it's going to be to the point where he's going to be saving that lightning for the expo from here on out in the match. Baby Dragon just barely gets 1 breath of fire on that left tower. Now we're kind of even at this point, but YaoYao knows what his opponent's playing, and this deck is really good against siege. That's one of the benefits to this deck, guys, right? Because we have lightning, we have the golem. I mean, this deck hard counters siege decks. That's the good thing. So we don't have to worry. As long as we don't misplay, we're going to pick up a victory here. So here comes the Dark Prince coming in again. You can see YaoYao is not afraid to cycle Dark Prince and Lumberjack in the back. He's doing it again, guys. We're only 90 seconds into this match, but YaoYao is not afraid to go ahead and play the Dark Prince or the Lumberjack in the back, making his opponent wait to drop that Expo before he drops his Golem. It's very important to be aware of that. So he sacrifices the Golem into the Expo. I'm not sure if maybe on retrospect, and maybe I'm wrong, right? But maybe in retrospect, hindsight being 2020, he should have played the Golem a little bit closer to the King Tower, a little bit closer. That way he could build up some sort of a push behind it. Either way, it still worked out. He was able to mitigate any damage done by the Expo to his tower, and now it's time to reload here. So Dark Prince and a Baby Dragon, remember, he's not playing that Golem right away. He wants to force the opponent to play the Expo first because Golem kind of counters an Expo. So here we go, Ice Wizard placed down. E-Wiz is actually going to do a little bit of damage there. It doesn't really matter though, because the win condition of the opponent is back in a defensive position. Perfect time to drop down the Golem. So here comes a big push for YaoYao, and YaoYao knows it. YaoYao with a little BMing of his own here. He's laughing. I think he knows he has this match right here. So he's going to play that E-Wiz, going to come in real handy there, going to reset that Inferno Dragon and cause that Golem to stay alive just a bit longer. Meanwhile, the Lumberjack is already getting the job done on the tower, and boom! Tower is down. So guys, I hope you enjoy this Dark Prince deck. I really kind of like the deck. I gotta be honest, I haven't played it yet myself because I was so excited after recording it to you. Just wanted to get you the deck and the tips to use. Wishing you nothing but success with the deck. And of course, guys, remember to try the pump variation if you don't like the Dark Prince variation. So guys, huge shout out to my YouTube partner, Bren Chong. Huge shout out to all my Patreon supporters. A lot of love to Bren and my Patreons. Check out all that information in the description below. Guys, thanks so much for watching, and as always, take care, guys.